away from passenger cars in recent years. They're not buying so many of those family sedans and hatches anymore. Instead, they've gone for macho-minded vehicles, collectively called SUVs. This is one such SUV. It's the Touareg. And it's named after the Touareg people of Saharan Africa, known for their resilience and endurance. And this car is also resilient and has endurance. There was a facelift in 2015 where VW's then latest face was grafted onto the Touareg, and it included these bi-xenon lights, which I think look really great. And I particularly like how the bars run down the lights and then across the bumper. And this badge is where on active cruise control models the radar is hidden. This car has Moab 19-inch wheels. Personally, I think they look a little bit small, a little bit lost in the wheel arch. Nonetheless, they look great. You can go up to 20-inch wheels for the next model up, which I think look even better. However, the bigger the wheel, the lower the tyre. The lower the tyre, the worse the ride. And this car has pretty good ride. You can also get models with air suspension. This one, however, makes do with conventional suspension. I like the graceful lines of this car. And if you think some of it looks a little Porsche Cayenne-ish, it's not by accident. This car shares a lot with a Porsche Cayenne. There's also very few character lines, just this graceful curve which makes the outside look uncluttered and clean. Although this car's not a true off-roader, it's still pretty high. And getting in the back is pretty easy. Easy to get in, and there's loads of space. This seat is set for me. Look at that, there's a good 6 inches of space there. And what's 6 inches between friends? Also, my feet fit right under the front seat. There's a great little net for maps and what have you, not that anybody uses maps anymore, and a nice big bin for bits and bobs. And in the front seat there is plenty of room. I feel kind of lost in this cabin. It is really capacious. The materials are generally quite soft and of good quality, but there are a few little hard bits like up here in this top bin. I'll talk more about the stowage in a minute. As you can see, plenty of space. The door controls are pretty simple. There's a spot to open the rear tailgate, and of course window controls and electrically operated child locks for the back doors, so that you can kind of lock people in the back. On the doors also is the lock and unlock button. There is no actual physical lock, you don't push anything down. And the mirror controls, which also includes the heated mirror. Unusually for Volkswagen, you don't use the badge to unlock the door. There's a little button under here along with the rear view camera. Unfortunately, it means that anything outside is going to get covered in schmutz. Let me find that. But there's a nice high loading area, and this mat, which comes standard, is double-sided, rubber on one side, carpet on the other, both non-slip. That means it won't move around. What you can do is reverse that so that you can put stuff on it that you don't want to slip around, or stuff that you don't want to dirty the carpet. And this, which comes standard, is the cargo net which fits inside to stop all your oranges rolling around the boot. And this is luggage cover. Some people are just obsessive about not wanting stuff being seen from the outside. And cleverly, these two buttons will release the back seats to allow them to go down. It's divided into 1/3, 2/3, and you can hear them unlock. So now they're ready for me to push down. You can see the seats fold down almost flat. If you put something heavy on it, they would actually be flat. Of course, you can take this out, but I've just spent about 10 minutes trying to get it out, and I can't do it. Evidently, you need a degree. And when you finish, just touch the button on the top and the door closes. And as you take off, you feel just the gentlest little tug on the seatbelt as the car tightens it up, just in case you have an accident. Touareg is a surprisingly rewarding car to drive on the road, despite the fact that this one has the standard suspension, and despite the fact that it has hydraulic steering, so that means no automated parking, it's extremely pleasant around town. It's on the highway though where it really comes into its own. This has a 150 kilowatt engine. 150 kilowatts is not a lot to pull around a car worth over 2100 kilos. However, because of 450 newton meters of torque, it has no trouble whatsoever. There are also two other engines in the range, all diesel. One is a V6 for 180 kilowatts, and the other one is a V8 diesel with 250 kilowatts, but 800 newton meters of torque. I mean, that's enough to make the planet spin back in the opposite direction whenever you put your foot down. It's crazy. You can see now I'm in traffic. I've hit afternoon peak hour traffic in Sydney, but Touareg is quite at home. Up here, as part of my multifunction display, I've got a gear indicator telling me that I'm in drive and fifth. So this car's quite happy to beetle down Moore Park Road in fifth. Why not? Why wouldn't you? The 8-speed auto is smooth. It can feel a little bit dim-witted as it tries to change up as quickly as possible to try and make fuel consumption as good as it can possibly be. Now I've taken my foot off the accelerator and the dashboard is telling me that the transmission has disconnected from the engine and was coasting. Well, it wasn't until I put my foot on the brake. If you put your foot on the brake or accelerator, it stops coasting. And that's also to improve fuel consumption. They've gone to a lot of trouble to make it as fuel efficient as humanly possible, and considering this car weighs over 2 tons, I think that's a pretty good go. The average fuel consumption so far since we started the car and drove out of the park is 14.7 litres per 100 kilometres. That's not great, but that's for like half a kilometre. It improves drastically as the car gets faster and faster and faster. And if you did a bit of highway driving and a bit of city driving combined, you should get around 7.5 litres per 100 kilometres. 9.2 seconds 0 to 100 is leisurely by any standards, so it's not going to break any speed records anytime soon. However, it's more than enough for a car of this size, of this vintage, in the city. This is what the New South Wales government thinks is a good idea. This light rail will take slightly longer to build than Hadrian's Wall. So VW knows that, like most people, this is about as much that's ever going to be asked of an SUV, cruising around streets like this with the occasional weekend away. So 74,990 base price for this car, drive away, is a lot of shekels. But you get a lot of car for your lot of shekels. I like the interior. I like the outside. I think it looks great. But I'm just not quite sure it's value for money, as nice as it is to drive. Based on the fact that it doesn't have Apple CarPlay, doesn't have any of the driver aids that I would now expect for a car of that price, and that it's at the end of its life. Love Touareg though I do, I can only award it 6.5 stars. There's just too many things missing for the price. Don't forget, subscribe.